Welcome to Just Some Points, and today we're talking about website development, which is exciting, but even more exciting is that we have Allison with us today. So, Melissa, why don't you get going? I'm interested to hear what you have to say about what's new in the world of website development.
Sure. So one of the more popular questions that we're starting to see from clients is comparing WordPress, which is what we prefer to use, over other systems like Squarespace and Wix and all of those. So we recently did a lot of research on, especially from an SEO perspective, the difference between WordPress and those other platforms. Mainly what I wanted to focus on was just expressing how much more independence you have and how much more control you have over your search engine optimization when you use platforms like WordPress over Squarespace. Obviously, everybody knows Squarespace is a really nice platform if you are unfamiliar with website development and coding and design and all of that. But platforms like that really take away your control over your metadata, over your image tags, your descriptions, all of that stuff that's in the back end of a website that Google.
Actually, if I could just jump in for a moment as a question before you move on, Melissa. So all the things we do for our clients, let's say on a page by page specific basis, where we put the SEO related notes in and the tags and stuff. You can't do that.
What Squarespace says is that they do it for you. So like for us,
how would they know? Because I know we sometimes rack our brain for the right wording on things, especially for SEO.
Exactly. So that's, one of the big concerns is that for us, we like to have control when we see that click-through rates are not as high on our, pages on Google. We can control the messaging, the taglines, the titles, the text in there to kind of help try and figure out what keywords to throw in so that you can make those changes and that you can start seeing higher click-through rates. That's all stuff that you don't have control of in Squarespace. They just pull from the schema markup, which does not change in Squarespace. They don't make those changes for you. So it's very, much more, I guess when you're looking at it, it seems easier because it's hands off when you're in Squarespace, but you have no control, and it actually becomes a lot harder to make these SEO efforts that you want to make sure that your website gets to the top of the search results.
Wow. So do you, from a SEO is, has always been important, but especially going to this year, as we have said, we have, I think, 2 or 3 episodes just on that over the last 2 months. Going to this year, SEO is really huge. So as a Wix or any of those companies, you basically just have to sit back and let it fly and hope that they do something, but you don't really have a lot of power over any of those needs.
Yeah.
And I was going to say there's actually, some scuttlebutt about it now. If you look on the Squarespace and the Wix forums, some of the more savvy users are starting to realize how important, or have been hearing maybe from our podcast, I don't know, about Core Web Vitals. And they're starting to question whether or not those platforms are going to take that into account and what they'll be able to do to ride that wave. And it sounds to me like so far it's been radio silence on their end.
Wow. That's very interesting. It's like, I'm not completely surprised, those are, some of those companies are big public companies and they look at the stock price, and I think they calculate with a certain percentage of turnover of the clients. And I think they're riding the wave of small businesses who don't really have the money, or don't have any budget, and just slapping together a website in an easy fashion. I think that's really, I guess, the messaging they provide, the value proposition, ease of use.
Yep. That's exactly what their proposition is. And I actually think WordPress has seen this, as a like a fallout for Squarespace and everything, because WordPress actually just introduced this month built by WordPress.com. And they are offering right now, it's by application only, so you have to apply. And if you get accepted, WordPress will build a website for you starting at $4,900.
I saw that actually. That's a big move that they made.
Yeah, and I think, it's because they are, like Allison said, they're starting to see how people in these forums are starting to question the SEO value of Squarespace, and they're trying to capitalize on that.
Right. Wow, that's interesting. Cool. Allison, what did you bring to your first podcast, to your first Just Some Points?
Well, I actually wanted to talk about WordPress as opposed to kind of locked down proprietary CMSs, which actually kind of bridges the gap nicely, because Squarespace, Wix, those are examples of proprietary CMSs, but there are a lot of others that you've never heard of, that you have no need to hear about. But I kind of want to talk about why we choose to develop in WordPress beyond the SEO implications, and kind of just to talk about WordPress as a larger option overall. And actually, the first thing I want to say, Melissa, is I want to dispel a little bit of the myth around WordPress and ease of use and design, and say that anyone can build a WordPress website almost as easily as they can with Wix or Squarespace. I think that the difference is people get overwhelmed a little bit with the customization in WordPress, because you could go today directly to wordpress.com, which is not the same as wordpress.org. Wordpress.org is where all the information about their releases, plugins, things like that exist. But wordpress.com is their user-facing site for people who want to start a WordPress website. Traditionally, it's used for people that were looking to get a blog going, but you have the option to get a domain, buy a domain from them. They'll host the site for you, and you can build it using one of the, I'll say millions, I don't know if that's true or not, it's certainly thousands of WordPress themes that are available out there. They just don't make it quite as easy as Squarespace. But anyone who's used Squarespace or Wix will also tell you that those platforms are super frustrating, because sometimes you just want to move an image there and you can't. So there's like a little bit of middle ground there between the customization and ease of use of WordPress and the super easy use of like Wix or Squarespace. But once you start to get a little more into those, they really can get quite frustrating, especially if you've been using them for a while and start to know what you're doing. But that's not 100% what I was here to talk about, so I'm going to move on for a second. I want to just talk about WordPress overall right now. It's a product that we've been using, an open source content management system, keyword being open source, that we've been using for as long as I've been at Points, which has now been, well, since 2013, so a while. And it's important to know.
It's probably the most used worldwide, right?
It is, actually it is. So thanks to the guys at or gals at W3Techs, which is a technology survey company, we know that WordPress is the most used content management system at 64.2% as of 2021.
Wow.
I know. And if you think about all of the websites worldwide, we know that 39.9% of all websites worldwide use WordPress for something.
Wow.
Do they have our percentage that we contribute to it? Probably not, right?
Well, we'll see. I can tell you that some really big companies use WordPress for some aspect of their website. Whether it's big guys like Zoom and Microsoft.
I know for the longest time, I don't know if they're still on, but CNN was on WordPress for the longest time.
So I'm looking at the list of top 10 biggest sites right now that are using it, and they're not coming up, but it's possible that they still may be. I'd have to look into it. But certainly big companies like Zoom and Microsoft and Craigslist, Zillow, they're using WordPress for something on their website, whether it's their website as a whole or for managing all of the content that they have on their site.
Well, somebody should maybe notify Craigslist that they can actually download very inexpensive, much nicer themes
Themes.
than what they have.
I think at this point, that's just their brand.
Yeah, I
People would
know
be
it
in an
is. But
uproar if
I
they
was just
changed
on
it.
their site last week and I said, oh, it's amazing that they maintain this.
Yeah, but the reason why all of these companies are choosing to use WordPress is it's open source, which means that it's not locked down and people have access to the code and can use it for whatever, however they want to use it. They can make any customization they want, and they're not locked into what a proprietary CMS would lock them into. So that flexibility is what's driven the adoption of it. The other reason why WordPress has been so widely adopted is because it's so widely supported. We're on WordPress version 5 point something at this point, and 85% of all WordPress users are using the latest version of WordPress. So that says an awful lot. Now, I got to admit, I have an old personal blog that I won't tell you what the link is, but I haven't touched it in probably 7 years. I'm sure it's on WordPress 3.1. So I'm
It's
one of the contributors to the 1%, but I'm also not using it. People who are using their WordPress website are staying up to date with it. And that's because it's so well supported. The updates that are getting pushed by WordPress, they're easy to do. It's a click of a button and you update your whole thing. And it's really good in that
So the
manner.
bottom line is WordPress will not diminish in usage and how popular it is. And I think the other thing, you kind of touched on it, is because it is so widely used, all resources are widely available, meaning human resources that know the system, programmers, designers, people that manage it, and so on and so forth. Plus the integration. WordPress is just incredible because of it, in terms of integration. So very interesting. Yeah, actually, so it kind of fits to what I want to talk about. And I looked at last few weeks at what are the newest trends, regardless of what platform you use, but then also through the goggles of, okay, you have a WordPress website and we're using WordPress. Number one, I want to talk about progressive web apps, PWAs. PWAs are basically are programs, or it's a way of developing your website now that is trying to bridge the benefits of mobile apps and websites. Because everything is mobile now, the majority of traffic is generated on mobile devices. People want to have the benefits of mobile apps even when they go to websites. And so PWAs, they allow you to have certain features, including, for example, offline viewing of your website, for mobile devices. So you can actually be offline and see somebody's homepage. To benefit the companies that have installed that, they realized increase of conversions and overall traffic actually to the websites. There's a few well-known ones, like Alibaba is using it, Forbes is using it, Twitter is using it, the Washington Post are using it. Basically also what the benefit is, when you have a PWA on your website, you get actually a notification in your phone or on your tablet, and it asks you if you want to have it as an icon on your tablet or on your phone. And then afterward, it's basically accessible on your phone, which is very interesting. The other reason why companies started to use it is actually because it bridges kind of functionality into the app development. It's 4 times faster to develop basically a website using PWAs. So we will see more of that going forward, going into 2021. It's around for a while. It's not brand new, but we will see heavier usage of that. It is available through a plugin for WordPress, which makes it interesting. So you can actually apply PWAs to your WordPress website and make them actually go in this direction.
So what you're telling me is we're going to wind up Melissa and I are going to wind up doing a PWA for the point site as a test.
I guess you read. Correct. The next one, I don't know how many episodes we had last year talking about focusing on mobile, and I have as number 2, accelerate mobile pages. It's a framework, a developer framework. It was initially developed by Google to have companies. We give them a framework to quickly develop websites and web pages that are optimized for quick loading on mobile devices. It's been around for quite a few years. I think they started 2015 developing or offering the framework as being widely used. And it's definitely very beneficial if you use it for your SEO. And related to that, I have as number 3, responsive websites. Again, can't emphasize it enough. It's not going away. I'm mind-boggled how many websites I still see that are not responsive. They're still out there actually in big numbers. Number 4, voice search optimization. Again, we've talked about voice search quite a bit in the last year throughout our episodes. But it's really growing steadily. Gartner predicts that in 2021, about 30% of all searches will be done via voice activated searches, about 40 billion by 2022. So those are serious numbers. Again, you can start using this step by step in your WordPress website. There are actually web speech APIs that you can use in your WordPress website as something you should seriously look into that. API first development, I listed as number 5 as a trend. Again, this is around, I'm getting very technical now. I want to be careful about that, but APIs are application program interfaces. But what people realized is there's so many APIs out there, so much great functionality out there already, that integrating them with your website is a great thing. There's a benefit to it. But as it relates to how you develop your website, there's some very smart people, they figure that it might actually make more sense to actually initially, right when you have the design, also focus on the APIs first versus last. In the past, you developed a website and then you start integrating it with the outside world, where today the trend is more, you actually focus on the API integration first, and then develop everything else around it going forward after that. So there's just a shift in how you develop. And then, which brings me to the next one is push notifications. I personally found them, probably everybody finds them annoying. They were really big until 5 years ago, and then the browser started shutting them down. There's a lot of functionality how you can suppress them, and now they're starting to come back in a more subtle way. Little things like even the online chat, real-time chat on a website, that's actually a push notification too. So companies realize that push notifications actually have their place. You just have to be not annoying about it, and you have to be subtle about it. And so we will see that more happening going forward. And then the last one that I have also making it very strongly into websites this year is AI-powered chatbots. Again, we talked about that just recently in one of our episodes, actually a couple of times last year, about the role of AI in marketing and chatbots. They came a long way, the chatbots. And so we will see accelerated use of that. If you do have, if I ever thought about using a chatbot and we're kind of hesitant, I think now is the time to really start looking at it again. I have a stat here in front of me looking at the predicted use cases for chatbots. 30% projected to be used for getting quick answers in an emergency, resolving a complaint or problem. 35% is basically channeling them into the right channel, getting detailed answers or explanations on things, finding you customer service assistants, basically use them as a triage to get to the right person than in real, on a phone, 34%. So actually, I'll post that under the video, the statistic I thought was interesting. I think the bottom line in all of those things is there is a lot of change constantly as it relates to websites and website development. I had a conversation maybe 3 months ago with a client where I said, "You guys really need a new website." And I said, we just had a new website done. I said, that was 3 or 4 years ago. And we have clients, they haven't changed their website in 5 years. And if you think that the taste, the expectation, the behavior of users has not changed, then you're wrong. You're really short selling. Actually, you're not maximizing your opportunities. We are at a pace of every 2 years changing our website now. And I still feel that it's not often enough. It's
Don't
just
remind me.
But it's really every 2 years now we're changing our websites because everything is changing around us constantly. And if people think that they can just sit on a website for years and years and years, no need to change anything, that's just wrong. Not just from a design perspective, but also, again, SEO. Melissa could talk about it for 2 hours, what you should change.
Yeah, I would say overall, the biggest change that happens year over year is that the user expectation is that things get faster and faster and more instantaneous. We also had an episode not that long ago about 5G, with the fastest network that we're going to see. So people are going to expect things to load a lot faster. And if you can't keep up, you are going to lose traffic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the one thing that I thought is really interesting is the emerging of mobile apps and web applications. Because mobile apps, obviously, one of the biggest disadvantages of it is they're more expensive. Smaller companies can't afford them because of it. And they're also not as flexible. Once you're programmed, and they're out there and they were approved by the App Store, then they're sitting there. And if you want to make a quick change, it's not that easily possible. That's why I think actually the PWAs, they actually really have a real use case why they should be used and why they might really accelerate in its usage. Actually, I really think, I certainly want to look more into that for us and for our clients. So, okay. I think as every week, I thought it was very interesting. Thanks a lot. And hope you thought it was interesting too. See you soon.